Hello everybody, today we are going to be taking a look at the string problem. Given a string, return its reverse. So just like the linked list problem, here we have a string, reverse the string problem. So we're given a string input like hello, and what we need to return is OLLEH because it's the exact opposite order. The characters are in the exact opposite order. So we're going to take a look at two ways for approaching this problem. There's actually one very simple way, but there's another way that it is important to know how to do. So in Python, you can use a method called splicing. And a splicing, basically, all it does is it automatically returns the new reverse string by iterating through all the characters of once. So let's just take a look at how we would go about that. All we would need to do is we're going to be returning s. So if we have a string s, and what we do is indexing into the string. How you could typically index into the string using like the number 0, for example. 0 would indicate the first index of the string, 1 would indicate the second index of the string, and so on and so forth. But what you could instead do is use what is called a splice. So what we would do is if we do : -1, that's pretty much it. So what this will do is this will reverse every single character into the string. It'll automatically create a new string and then reverse the length, reverse every individual character of that string. So let's take a look. Basically, let's make sure that we got it. So print say hello, and then or no, let's get we could just do it like this: print reverse string of hello. And now what we should get is we should get OLH. One second, let me just make it the exact same thing. So if we did this right, we get OLLEH. So just like that, we solved this problem, literally a one-line solution. So that's pretty nice. However, a lot of interviewers want to know the exact depth and process of how this function exactly works, because using the splicing method, not often will it be satisfying for interviewers. Maybe it might if they know you are familiar with the coding language. That is a good sign, but let's try to figure out a more advanced, a more appropriate way of solving this type of problem for an interview or something like that. So we'll do the exact same thing. We'll call it reverse string 2. Now what we're going to do is, instead of just immediately doing it, like we know, a string is essentially a list of characters. So what we want to do is we'll make a list called cars, and it's essentially just going to be the list of the string. Now you can just use a normal string and index into it. However, we do need to convert this into a list because strings are typically known as what is immutable, meaning that they can't be changed super easily. So we need to make them into a list first, and at the end we can eventually turn it back into a string and return that. So what do we want to do? What we are going to be doing is we're going to be using a two-pointer approach, and essentially all we need to do is we have the string at the beginning here and a string at the a pointer at the beginning, a pointer at the end. We're going to keep going them into the middle, and each time we're going to swap the positions of the first and last pointer until we eventually get into the middle. So let's take a look. Basically, we have two pointers. We'll call them left and right. We can define it simply by using comma, 0, and then length of cars -1. That's the last index of the list. So we have one index at the 0 and one at the last index. And now all we need to do is say while left is less than right. So while the left is less than right, because when left is equal to right, we know that we are at the middle character and the thing is done. all we need to do is swap the left and right characters, and an easy way to do this is, just like I mentioned before, we could use commas. So we'll say cars of left, comma cars of right is equal to cars of right, comma cars of left. And that basically is all you need to do to swap the position of the left index with the right index, and then the right index goes to the left index, and it does it all by the once. If you don't use the commas, you'd have to create a temporary variable and all that, but this is the simplest way to do it in Python, and I think a lot of other coding languages have something similar to this, or they might not. I'm not entirely familiar with it, but this is the simplest way to do it in Python. And at the end of this thing, remember we swap those two characters, we swap these two characters, and then we move on to this next character. So what we want to do is we want to move the left pointer up one and the right pointer down one. So left plus equals to 1, and then right minus equals to 1. And yeah, that's it. We get the final list, we get the final cars list, and once again, this is a list, but we want to return a string. So what we do is we're going to return dot, and we're going to join them using, how we use this is we put two characters to indicate that they are being joined by a character, by basically nothing, and then dot join cars. And essentially what this does is the dot join function, it creates a string that will return basically each individual element in the list separated by this, which is a string of nothing. So this will just create a single character string. Okay, and at the end we can do the same thing, just making sure that this is correct. Return reverse string 2 of hello. It should return the exact same thing twice since we got this first and second method. And yeah, there we go. Both methods work exactly the same. This is a more advanced one. It has the exact same time complexity of big O of n for the time complexity and the space complexity by creating this, because we're creating the same list of n characters and we're looping through the characters, technically in n over 2, but it is generally considered a big O of n time complexity solution. So that's a pretty neat solution on how you could do either one. Obviously, for a more practical application, you would just do something like this if you actually needed to do it. So this is a handy trick to know, but obviously if you want if an interviewer or someone else is asking you the logic behind it, you'd want to figure out this two-pointer solution. So yep, that's pretty much it, and hope you guys learned a thing or two. Alright, see you.